Thank you. And without objection, we move this bill to suspense.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Next, I believe we skipped over Senator Fuller. I'm so sorry. Ms. Senator Fuller, if you have... You have 3 items, SB 115, 506, and 526. We will begin, they're all candidates for suspense. We'll begin with SB 115.
Thank you.
Please proceed.
This morning I will be presenting on SB 506 and SB 526, and if it's okay, I would like to do SB 526 so that my witness can get back.
No problem.
And I'd also wish to waive presentation for SB 115.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so moving on to SB 526.
Correct. Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Thank you for the opportunity to present SB 526 to you this morning. It is my understanding that this bill is a candidate for the suspense file, but the fact that the issue in SB 526 is so important to me, I wish to present to the committee, and I thank you for your time this morning. SB 526 gives the Franchise Tax Board more flexibility to consider a divorce agreement when determining if one spouse can be relieved of a joint tax liability. Currently, the law does not give the FTB the authority to honor a divorce agreement unless a number of conditions are met. If 2 parties have reached a mutual agreement in state court, an agreement they believe has fairly divided their assets and debts, then a tax agency should have the authority to honor those agreements. Although the bill applies to either spouse, most cases affect women. Therefore, SB 526 will assist in easing the financial burden of divorced women who should have no legal obligation to pay the tax if it was part of their divorce agreement in the state court agreement. To assist with answering any questions from committee members with me this morning is Board of Equalization Vice Chair George Runner, who is sponsoring the bill.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. You know, sitting on the board, we actually get appeals, and we have real taxpayers with real issues come before us. And this is one that's come before us 15 times since I've been on the board in the last almost 5 years now. And it really is, it seems to me, be a clear unjust situation, because basically what we have is one arm of the state, the court system, who makes a judgment, and they assign responsibility based upon that, and they sign off on a divorce agreement based upon that agreement. And so assets are agreed on, and liabilities are agreed on. And unfortunately, what happens is we have another arm of the state, the FTB, who then basically has no choice in order to observe and enforce that agreement. And so what happens is somebody believes that they have taken a liability away from them based upon the divorce agreement and the decision with what to do with assets, only to find out a number of years later that the FTB can come after them. And so we would like to be able to do one simple thing, and that is to give the FTB the ability to have the option to be able to waive and not go after the spouse that has been given the agreement in the divorce proceedings to not have to be responsible. But again, it gives the FTB, if they're needed, to go after that individual. But right now, the law doesn't even permit them to waive that. They must go after the person, the individual spouse, even if that divorce agreement was clear as to whose responsibility it was. I would like to at least talk a little bit about on the fiscal assessment that FTB has done. The concern that I have with it says, according to calculations, for every $1 million in granted relief. I want to make it clear, nobody is granted relief here. All it is we're focusing on who's going to pay. And who's going to pay gives the FTB the ability to go only after the person who was assigned the responsibility if they choose to do that. So there's no really granted relief here. It's just saying who's responsible for paying. So I think that's very clear. And the other issue is I think what that means is that the FTB has the ability then to continue the collection process. No one is getting granted relief. It gives the FTB the responsibility for continuing the collection process on that individual who was assigned that responsibility in that divorce agreement. So I think we'd really like you to take a hard look at this in terms of its true cost. We don't think the cost is going to be nearly that high. And the other thing is, I think that we ought to honor, the FTB ought to have the ability to honor, when they see necessary, the divorce agreements that were made. I'd ask you to consider this bill and maybe decide to move it off of suspense.
Nice try, Senator.
I'll give my best.
It's always great to have you back here.
Thank you.
Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
No file.
No file. Comments or questions from committee? Senator Fuller, would you like to close?
In closing, I want to reinforce that SB 526 gives the FTB flexibility to consider a divorce agreement when determining if one spouse can be relieved of a tax liability. It also saves costs of going after two people, one of which is whom is not really responsible. My office and I have been working closely with the FTB and will be providing amendment language to stakeholder concerns before the May 28th suspense file hearing date.
Thank you. Look forward to seeing those.
Although this bill applies to, again, either spouse, most cases affect women, and this bill will ease their financial burden of divorced women, many of them with children, who should have no legal obligation to pay the tax bill because the spouse assigned to the tax bill would not pay it if it was not a part of their divorce agreement. I respectfully ask for yes.
Thank you. Without objection, we move this bill to suspense. Your next item, Senator Fuller, is SB 506. Please proceed.
Thank you, Chair and members. SB 506 creates the Military and Aerospace Program under the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, or GOBIZ. This program would be responsible for retaining military bases and federal research facilities like NASA Ames in California. The program would also work to retain and grow aerospace activities in the state. California is home to nearly 30 major military installations, 3 NASA centers, and multiple federal research labs. The Department of Defense employs over 359,000 military and civilian Californians. The DoD's annual payroll is well over $15 billion and has procurement contracts worth over $40 billion. 4 of the 5 top Department of Defense contracts in California are with aerospace companies, which is why this bill includes aerospace as part of the program. In addition to aerospace defense contracts, California is home to a growing commercial spaceflight industry with the California-based SpaceX in Hawthorne and the Virgin Galactic in Mojave and Los Angeles. A recent economic study on California's aerospace industry estimates that there are over 200,000 Californians directly employed by aerospace companies. But we cannot assume that these companies will continue to grow here in California. Recently, Florida's governor was here trying to lure California companies away, and often many of the bases are trying to be recruited by other states, especially our Los Angeles base. And last year, SpaceX selected a South Texas location to build a commercial space launch complex. I stumbled over that because it's hard for me to swallow. Despite this tremendous economic impact, there is no statewide entity in law responsible for helping retain and grow both military and aerospace activities in the state. While a new round of base closures is always on the horizon, California cannot wait for such legislation to begin fighting for our military bases and research stations. Bigger and more immediate threats to military installations besides BRAC are federal budget cuts, non-BRAC force realignments, and reductions in aircraft inventory. I might add that Norfolk has a huge lobby that we are competing with. My goal with SB 506 is to build upon our past success by designating GOBIZ in law as a state entity responsible for retaining and growing both military and aerospace activities. And like the past, the state will still have the ability to utilize nonprofits to run this program at little or no cost to the budget. I understand that this bill is a candidate for the suspense file. I ask for your support.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. Witnesses in support.
Hi, Cindy Hillary on behalf of the 34 rural counties in California. I'm not the witness that Senator Fuller was waiting for, but we are in support. We have 3 counties that have bases in them, but bases provide an economic driver for not only the rural county that they may be based in, but for counties surrounding that county. And so they may be the major economic driver for a regional area, and we see this as a good opportunity for those rural counties to have good economic development opportunities cited within them, but also for the surrounding areas. So for those reasons that we are in support. Thank you.
Thank you. Witnesses in opposition? Finance?
No file.
Comments or questions from committee? Seeing none, Senator Fuller, would you like to close?
Thank you. Having visited several of the federal research bases, I urge you to try to keep them. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Fuller. Without objection, we would move this bill to suspense. See, we have Senator Pan. Please come forward. Senator Pan, you have several items that are suspense candidates. Just to make sure, you are waiving presentation on file item SB 424.
Correct.
SB 480, and SB 591.
And also, I believe SB 530, is that on the list?
That one was.
That bill was 28.8.
Oh, okay.
So you have
No.
1, 2, 3 items that you're presenting on.
Correct, yes.
Let's begin with SB 312.
SB 312, okay. So.
Please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members. SB 312 is a bill that would provide that county human services agencies are required to conduct a required personal interview with an applicant for CalWorks benefits by either telephone or through electronic means. This bill would provide that the face-to-face interview shall be conducted if requested by the applicant or the recipient. This bill is going to suspense. However, I look forward to working with the committee moving forward. I believe that this will actually improve efficiency and access to these important services. Thank you.
Thank you. Witnesses in support?
Yeah, Kevin Asley, Coalition California Welfare Rights Organizations. Currently in the CalFresh program, they have telephonic and electronic means interviews that achieves efficiencies. And our intent is to have the CalWorks program work the same way. So it would be the county option to do telephonic interviews or in-person interviews. And we're working on language to rectify this, and I don't think this is any cost. It also would help a lot of people in the rural area, because that way they don't have to travel long distances. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Jessica Bartholow with the Western Center on Law and Poverty. We are a co-sponsor of the bill. Appreciate the analysis and the ability to work with the chair and the committee staff while it's on suspense. Appreciate working with other members as it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Kathy Sunderling with the County Welfare Directors Association in support of the legislation. Thanks.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support? Witnesses in opposition? Finance?
No file.
Questions or comments from the committee? Senator Bell?
Just that if you reduce the number of people that have to go back to square one and reapply by doing this, you would save money, because then you wouldn't have to go through the full reapplication process all over again. I think that's what happens to a large number of people, and I think this would facilitate a reduction in the total number of people that have to go through a reapplication.
Yeah, this would reduce churning. They call that churning.
Yes, we got it. We got it. Thank you. We're reducing the churning the butter. Witnesses in opposition? Oh, we already went, sorry, I'm getting confused here. Without objection, Senator Pan, we will move this bill to suspense file.
Thank you.
Your next item is 572.
Yes.
Please proceed.
Again, thank you again, Mr. Chair, members. SB 572 requires school districts to appoint an advisory committee made up of parents, students, teachers, and a cross-section of the community to advise the district before closing a school. Despite the lack of data, our conversations with stakeholders indicates that many school districts already use advisory committees for school closures as recommended by the Department of Education. Therefore, SB 572 would not require these school districts to do more than they are already doing, and that would not increase their costs. However, for school districts that do not do this, this is an important investment because of the severe economic consequences of closing a school, particularly for low socioeconomic communities. School closures, fortunately, are very rare occurrences in California, so the use of the advisory committee would also be rare, would not impose any high recurring costs. Overall, the high cost and severity of closing a school far outweighs the cost of establishing a district advisory committee. District advisory committees benefit the school closure process because they help the school district conduct a comprehensive impact study that includes projected cost savings and fiscal analysis. This helps school districts make their final decision and can limit the negative fiscal effects caused by school closure. SB 572 will help ensure that those most affected by a school closure have a voice at the table and work together with the school district to determine the best course of action to help their children during this difficult period without financially burdening the school district. I look forward to working with the Committee on Suspense. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Pan. Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chair, Tony Chiguero on behalf of the California Teachers Association. We've worked with the author and we're in the process of acquiring a support position on the bill. We think while it's on suspense that we can reduce any of the mandate costs. We have a couple suggestions. We think it's a great idea for communities, and we hope you'll give it your serious consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
No file.
Questions or comments from the committee? Seeing none, Senator Pan, would you like to close?
Appreciate your consideration on suspense. Hope to
It
get
will
out.
be considered. Without objection, we will move this bill to suspense. The next item is SB 610.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair, members. I present to you SB 610, which also is a suspense file candidate. SB 610 requires the Department of Healthcare Services to finalize a new reimbursement rate and complete annual reconciliations for federally qualified health centers or rural health centers within specified timelines. Currently, there's no timelines that require DHCS to finalize reimbursement rates or annual reconciliations for FQHCs or AHCs, which are critical to access to care in underserved communities. This has resulted in DHCS taking approximately 5 years to finalize a new rate and approximately 3 years to finalize reconciliation, which has resulted in the state owing nearly $50 million to the clinics. Although the timelines established by 610 may require funding for additional staff, this would be a temporary situation to help with the backlog of paperwork that's been accumulated. SB 610 is not requiring the state to do anything new, but simply holding the department accountable for the money they owe those clinics so the clinics can continue to provide access to quality care. The bill currently has bipartisan support, no opposition. I look forward to working with you and the committee to remove the bill from suspense. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Witnesses in support.
Chair Member Sean South on behalf of the California Primary Care Association, I want to thank the committee for their very thoughtful analysis. As stated by the author, it may increase costs temporarily, but does not have an impact on Medi-Cal. It's the same dollars. It's just being done in a more timely and responsible manner. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
No file.
Comments or questions from committee? Seeing none, Mr. Pan, would you like to close?
Again, respectfully, look forward to working with you to get this bill off suspense. Thank you.
Thank you. Without objection, that bill will go to suspense. Next, we have Senator Nguyen. Senator Nguyen, my understanding is you're presenting on behalf of Senator Hertzberg, SB 184.
I can do that. I also have two bills on suspense. Do you want
Let's
me to
just
do
go file order, and let's dispense with the due pass recommendation first. Members, that is SB 184. That's the committee bill from Governance and Finance. Senator Nguyen, please proceed.
Thank you. Thank you, Chairman Laura and Vice Chair Bates and members. SB 184 is just the Local Government Omnibus Act of 2015. This bill contains relatively minor, non-controversial changes to statutes affecting local governments. There is no opposition to any of the bill's provisions, and the committee's policy is to remove any language that receives opposition from the bill. By combining several small consensus statutory changes into a single bill, the Government Finance Committee bill reduces annual legislative costs. And again, I'm here on behalf of our chairman, Senator Hertzberg. And I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Senator Nguyen. There is a motion. Witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
The Department of Finance is neutral on this bill as it makes various changes to improve the operations of local government.
Thank you. Questions or comments from committee? There is a motion by Senator Bell. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Senate floor. Laura?
Aye.
Laura, aye. Bates? Bates, aye. Bell? Bell, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Leyva? Leyva, aye. Mendoza? Nielsen? Nielsen, aye.
Thank you. We will hold the roll open on this item to allow Senator Mendoza to add on. Next, Senator Nguyen, you have two items, both suspense candidates. We will begin with SB 268. Please proceed.
Thank you. Members, SB 268 will update the dependent care credit to reflect the rising cost of childcare and allow more parents to qualify for it. I entered this bill to help working middle-class families manage how expensive it is to raise children in the state while keeping a roof over their head and food on the table. As a mother myself, I know all too well the challenges associated with daycare and costs of bringing up two young boys. Both of mine are under 5. And are in preschool. I also worry about the young professionals who are entering the workforce with children and are just starting their career, and especially the single working mothers who face costly trade-off if they go back to work. If you look at those families, you see they are in need of support and help. For example, a young working middle-class couple that makes just over $1,000 a year. So two teachers starting out about $110,000, $120,000 does not qualify for the credit. Because of the high cost of childcare, a family with one infant and a toddler could end up spending about 20% of their annual income just for monthly daycare or preschool tuition, included other, of course, related expenses like lunch costs. It is also an economically rational decision for these families to keep one parent out of the workforce to care for the child instead. In cases like these, it's usually the woman who becomes a stay-at-home mom and gives up her career. The financial burden of child care becomes more of a reality for family I'm describing, especially when you live in an urban area such as Orange County, Los Angeles, San Diego, or even San Francisco. The cost of childcare becomes so difficult to manage that families can't even afford to rent a home, yet alone be able to consider buying a home. And so with California's, effort, we need to, I'm hoping that we can start helping young working families by giving them incentives to stay in the workforce to build their career. By passing this, it will encourage more workers to return to the workplace. So SB 268 provides a tax credit that will raise the qualifying expenses from a $3,000 credit per child to a $4,000 credit per child. On average today, it's about $12,000 for one infant. And then it will also raise the credit from $6,000 to $12,000 credit for 2 or more children, which today is about at least $24,000 a year. This will also raise the adjusted gross income amount of combined income of $100,000 to $250,000. Again, these numbers need adjusting because of the cost of childcare is averaging more than $12,000 a year per child. All working middle-class parents need this assistance to help care for their children and to give their child the structured educational start at an early age. SB 268 is a great step toward doing that, and I hope to work with you as it moves through suspense.
Thank you, Senator Nguyen. Witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
We don't have a position on this bill, but we would note that the Franchise Tax Board estimates revenue losses of $7.8 million in 2015-16, $8.1 million in 2016-17, and $8.3 million in 2017-18 based on the March 23rd amended version of this bill. The April 20th amendments raised income limits from $100,000 to $250,000, so we anticipate that the revenue losses will be significantly higher than that.
Thank you. Comments or questions from committee? Seeing none, Senator Nguyen, would you like to close on this item?
I just would I hope for your consideration as it moves through the file.
Thank you. Without objection, we'll move this bill to suspense. Your next item is SB 341. Please proceed, Senator Nguyen.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. SB 341, it just simply calls for the Department of Housing and Community Development to conduct a survey of cities and counties to determine the current level of housing developmental fees. The department last conducted a survey in 1998, well over 10 years ago, and it is time to update these numbers to find out what effect these fees have on current housing prices. The median value of a home in California is 150% higher than the national median value. Local development fees are part of this cost. According to a recent report from our LAO office, the average local development fees charged in California approximately over $22,000 compared to $6,000 in the rest of the country. When adjusted for cost of living expenses, mainly housing costs, California's rate is poverty rate is over 23%, which is the highest in the nation and well above the national rate of 15.5%. Californians spend disproportionate shares of their incomes on housing. For homeowners with mortgage, median monthly housing costs are 45% higher than for the nation as a whole. For renters, median rents are 36% higher. California's high residential development fees are a major cause of our high housing costs. 15 years ago, local fees accounted for 10 to 15% of the cost of building a home. Today, it is closer to 30% or a little more of that cost just to build a home, a new home in California. SB 341 will help identify the fees that lead to higher housing costs. In California, all Californians should be concerned about the high cost of housing, whether they rent or would like to own part of the American dream. If we work together, we can make homeownership an affordable reality again. I ask for your consideration as this moves forward.
Thank you. Witnesses in support of this item? Witnesses in opposition? Finance?
We don't have a position on this bill, but would note that for the statewide survey, the Department of Housing and Community Development estimates the various tasks needed to complete it. To complete for the minimum of 208 jurisdictions to be surveyed will require at least 2 positions totaling approximately $300,000 every 5 years. The bill doesn't specify a funding source, so we are assuming that the general fund would likely assume any costs needed to complete the new required actions.
Thank you. Comments or questions from committee? Senator Bates.
I'd just like to say thank you, Senator Wynn, for bringing this forward. You might remember in the county when we served together, one of the most important things we did was look at the fees that were being charged that were really impacting developers to be able to move forward with their development projects. I think this is probably one of the most important statistics we ought to have as we move forward in trying to create affordable housing for our younger population. They are not going to have the opportunities that we've had unless there's something that we can do to reduce the cost of actually developing and building housing in California. So hopefully this will get off suspense.
Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Bell.
Yeah, I'd like to echo my vice chair in the Committee on Transportation and Housing. This bill would lead to information I think would provide us a good base of decision making from a policy standpoint on reducing the cost of housing, and looking at the fees in particular is very important in doing that. So I think this would lead to a lot of work that we can do in the legislature to reduce the cost of housing. So I'm very much in support of this bill also.
Thank you. Additional comments or questions from the committee? I'm loving this bipartisan kumbaya. Thank you, Senator Wynn. Would you like to close?
I just ask for your consideration as it moves forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Without objection, this bill will move to suspense. Next, I see Senator Morrell. Come on down. Senator Morrell, you have 3 items. My understanding is you're waiving presentation on SB 619.
Your understanding would be correct on that bill.
Perfect. And you do have a due pass recommendation on SB 407. And you are presenting on SB 318?
I am.
Perfect. Let's begin with your due pass recommendation first. Members, that's SB 407. Senator Morrell, please proceed.
Okay. Good afternoon, and thank you, Mr. Chair and committee members. SB 407 adds licensed midwives to the list of providers eligible to participate in a comprehensive service program under Medi-Cal. SB 407 expands health care access to low-income mothers and gives them a choice. Expectant mothers of all income levels should have options when it comes to deciding where and how they bring their children into the world. Regardless, these mothers will otherwise receive care from a provider in the program if they are eligible. This bill simply allows them to seek out the services of licensed midwives if they so choose. I have one witness here from the California Association of Midwives, who is the sponsor of the bill, Roseanne Davis.
Again, just to remind you, it is a due pass recommendation, and if we can stick to the fiscal arguments, we'd greatly appreciate it. Go ahead.
Roseanne Davis, California Association. We believe that this bill increases options and equity for low-income families, and which in turn would lead to quality care that's cost-effective for prenatal care with licensed midwives. It creates efficiency in an existing program. It is budget neutral with positive human impact. Prenatal care with licensed midwives is associated with lower rates of cesarean section, lower birth weights, and preterm births, which in turn can lead to cost savings for the state. We respectfully ask for your support of this bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition, please come forward. Seeing none, finance.
No file.
No file. Comments or questions from the committee? Seeing none, is there a motion? Senator Leyva moves the bill. Secretary, please call the roll.
The motion is due pass to the Senate floor. Laura?
Aye.
Laura, aye. Bates? Bates, aye. Bell? Bell, aye. Hill? Hill, aye. Leyva? Leyva, aye. Mendoza? Nielsen? Nielsen, aye.
Thank you. Senator Morrell, we'll keep that roll open to allow other members to add on. Thank you.
You ready for the next one?
Absolutely. Let's do this. SB 318.
Let's roll. 318 would establish a pilot program to help students and teachers prepare for California's new assessments. It would also establish a criteria for measuring the success of these methods. The Smarter Balanced Assessment requires a number of technology skills that many students do not possess at this time. This has been coined the literacy gap. Without this basic computer and online functions, it will be very difficult for our students to demonstrate their true level of academic ability. So we hope the use of SB 318 to gauge what steps can be taken to help our students achieve greater success. The support we have received, California educators shows a need for a program that provides training and opportunities to integrate great technology in the curriculum. SB 318 would provide that training and those opportunities to underserved populations. Thank you.
Witnesses in support.
Mr. Chairman and members, very briefly, Brian Shea Jones on behalf of Learning.com. Just three quick points actually. Number one, we don't believe it has ongoing cost pressure because it's a pilot program. We could take an amendment to change that by moving up the inoperable date. So the statute actually goes away after the year that it's in effect. Number two, on the cost for CDE, there is a cost for CDE to go through the RFP process, but not to administer the program, because the program would be administered on the local level by an LEA. Number three, we do agree with the staff analysis that it's probably Prop $98.
Go ahead.
Mr. Chair and members, Isabel Garcia on behalf of the California Teachers Association. We ask your favorable consideration for this pilot program for all the reasons stated, and that our students really need the technology and digital resources to be able to succeed in their college and careers. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional witnesses in support. Witnesses in opposition. Finance.
No file.
No file. Comments or questions from committee? Seeing none, Senator Morrell, would you like to close?
No, I just hope you guys will consider this and hope it goes forward. Thank you.
It will be considered. Without objection, this bill moves to suspense file. Thank you, Senator Morrell.